Sitting close to Chicago's Loop, the University of Illinois at Chicago, known as UIC, plays an important role in Chicago's development. Chicago is a city of neighborhoods, but as these vibrant pockets of the city grow and change and new housing developments are built and real estate values go up, low-income residents are often forced out. This process is called gentrification. But programs like UIC's Neighborhoods Initiative, which links the school's resources with community-based initiatives, are working to keep residents in their neighborhoods. I sat down with Nacho Gonzalez, the program's associate director, to talk about community change in Chicago. Gonzalez is also the secretary of Bickerdike Redevelopment Corporation, which works to keep affordable housing available to Chicago residents.
I used to be a community organizer, and so in that you were constantly pushed into, because you're organizing around community issues and economic development issues. And then, so I wanted to come back to get a graduate degree. And I always wanted to go to college, but I was thinking more of, because I didn't know what urban planning was. So I thought that public administration was what I wanted. And then I got a job at the Center for Urban Economic Development. And while I was here, I realized that I could get a degree free because I'm working for UIC. I did a lot of studies on mainly economic development, and I liked doing them, so it was really a pretty easy transition. I was a product of the 60s, and during the late 60s, early 70s, everybody went into some form of organizing, and even if they pursued a graduate degree, like I had a lot of friends who went into the legal profession, so they went to law school, but it was because they were going to defend poor people. So everything was always revolved around people and working with people and social change. So that's why it just became very natural to just slip into organizing. But in organizing, you don't make a lot of money. You usually don't have very good insurance. I'm just lucky I was never sick, so I never needed insurance. And we managed to live on low income, but at a certain point in your life, then you got to start looking at your future. So that's when I got my degree and came to UIC. And we lived in Humboldt Park. I moved here in the 80s, early 80s. And moved to Humboldt Park, and in Humboldt Park I met all the community organizations.
I've known Nacho for 15 years, maybe a little longer. I want to say I met Nacho while he was getting his master's degree in urban planning, and I was working in a community organization, and so he was working. We had contracted with Center for Urban Economic Development to do some analysis for us, and I believe he worked on that. I believe that's how I first met him. I would say he's very committed, he's very engaged, and can I use 4 words? It just very sharp analysis. And very funny.
I'm going to describe his personality or character in 3 words. What would you say?
In 3 words, very genuine, very straightforward, and just pleasant person. The Neighborhoods Initiative, which is sort of his thing, he does. Originally, it was focused on neighborhoods that were close to UIC, and now it's sort of much more of a pan Chicago thing. So, and I know that he does a lot of networking and also helping small nonprofits and small agencies to, accomplish things.
when you go out in the community and you do surveys. We did a study about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, and we interviewed people in Humboldt Park. And all the Puerto Rican, not all of them, but a good number of Puerto Ricans we interviewed, low income, but they had homes, they owned their houses. They wanted gentrification.
Really?
They wanted it because they figure, I bought this house real cheap, now I'm going to sell it, I'm going to retire, I'm going to go back to Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And then we interviewed yuppies, and they're against gentrification. They go, well, the reason we located here, we want to raise our kids in a mixed community. We want them to be around diverse cultures. Of course, also, it's good housing stuff, and you're near all the transportation lanes.
Yeah.
And all of that. But I'm like, looking, I go, man, they're not supposed to be saying that. Brownsville versus Lincoln Park.
Oh.
Which was highly Puerto Rican. The Puerto Ricans moved to Humboldt Park once they were displaced from Lincoln Park.
Okay.
That in Brownsville, the strategy is to attract upper income African Americans back to the neighborhood. But it's still gentrification. If they come in, they displace low income African Americans. You're still displaced. And then Pilsen, the alderman, says, yeah, I want to attract Latino professionals back into the neighborhood. But, they're not going to want to live next door to poor people. I mean, the reason they went to college was to get away from them, So it's still gentrification. It's not a color thing. It's just that the most normal form is where whites come in and displace the minorities. But in Bucktown, there were a lot of whites displaced, low-income whites. When I first came to Chicago, I stayed at a house on North Hoyne, north of Armitage, and it was a slum. It was 1972, and it was whites. It was a white slum with a white gang, the Jousters. And they got displaced. You go, now it's all gentrified.
Yeah.
There ain't none of them low-income whites left.